that, remember, is the controversial bill going through Holyrood just now that seeks to speed up the process for those people who wish to change their gender.
She said in a Sunday newspaper interview that the BBC only recently stopped putting on climate deniers because they required balance. She added that the BBC wouldn't put balance on the question of racism or anti-Semitism, but we allow this fictional notion of balance when it comes to anti-trans. The whole thing is disgusting, she said. Now, she was on the 9 last night, and we asked her about this again.
What I said was about anti-trans bigotry, and I stand by that we should have zero tolerance for that. But of course, I welcome discussion on the Gender Recognition Act. It's what we're discussing in parliamentary committees and in Parliament, and people are welcome to ask questions about that. That's what we want, is to have that respectful discussion.
So do you regret that representation then that you made?
I don't at all regret saying that we should have zero tolerance of bigotry. But
you were talking about putting a balance on the question.
We should definitely have zero tolerance of bigotry. I think we can all agree on that. And we should absolutely have respectful discussion about the Gender Recognition Act reform. And I look forward to having that discussion.
Well, the Scottish Government today sought to clarify Ms Slater's comments. They said at no point had she suggested anyone engaging in respectful discussion on this topic should be excluded from the debate. Well, let's try and discuss this now then in hopefully a respectful way with the journalist and commentator India Willoughby and Shereen Benjamin from the rights group For Women Scotland, which has been active on the debate around the Gender Reform Act. Good evening to both of you. Let me come to you first then, India Willoughby. Whatever Lorna Slater specifically meant when she gave those original quotes, they are strong quotes. This fictional balance on anti-trans views is disgusting. You, India, are a trans woman. You have, I'm sure, strong views for good reason, but given your experience on all of this, we're trying to have an informed public and reasoned public debate on this in Scotland at the moment. It's a really important moment with this going through Parliament. Do you think it's wrong that we hear from people who have different opinions to you on gender reform?
Well, it depends who you're actually talking to. And we're talking tonight to a group that is exclusively trans hostile, wherever they might say. And we're living in a climate at the moment where trans people are being dehumanized. And the basic tactic is to pick an incident somewhere in the globe where a trans person has done something bad and say, this is the reason why trans people cannot be trusted. They cannot have rights. They must be excluded because of this one incident. Now, if you use that tactic on any other group, and I think Lorna mentioned this, if you said there's an example in Alabama of a black man doing something bad and we can't take that risk of giving black people rights in Britain, you would call that person a racist.
But so, who gets to decide what trans hostility is? You described Shereen's group as being trans hostile. Where's the definition on? Because Lawrence later said we want zero tolerance on bigotry. There are a whole different set of definitions of where the bar on bigotry is on this debate at the moment. That's kind of what the debate is about, really, isn't it? In a large sense, who gets to decide what's bigoted, what's hostile, and what isn't? India.
Well, the law does, and the law is that trans people are, to all intents and purposes, if you've transitioned, you are classed as a woman. Not a trans woman, a woman. Trans people are allowed in these spaces already. It's not a case of trans people suddenly arriving on the planet and trying to get into women's toilets. We've been using women's toilets for 50-odd years now, and there hasn't been a problem whatsoever. All this changed 3 or 4 years ago when the religious right in America got involved. There's a big conference there that all the religious right groups go to called the Voters' Values. And they said the battle against gay people is now lost. They have laws.
Well, hang on a second, because is that... let me come... I'm going to come back to you on that in a second, because I want to explore the issue of the religious right, because I'm not sure that a lot of people who have got different views to yours in Scotland would accept that they've been influenced by the religious right in the United States of America. But firstly, let's bring Shereen Benjamin into this. Shereen, trans hostile, your group apparently. Is that a definition that you recognise?
No, absolutely not. If I can just give you a bit of context, we're one of a very rapidly growing number of grassroots women's groups in Scotland. that have concerns about the impact of GRA reforms on women's rights. And you said at the beginning that the reforms are about speeding up the process. They're about more than speeding up the process. They're about extending the pool of people eligible for a gender recognition certificate far beyond what it currently is. The Scottish Government has said 8 to 10 times as many people, but it could be far more than that. We actually don't know. And it's a different type of population. It's a more diverse population. So the EHRC, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, also agrees with us that this is a reform that could have impact on women's rights. So what we're asking for is detailed scrutiny of the legislation and serious engagement with our concerns so that they can be addressed and resolved, and so that everybody's rights can be protected. Now, the tactics of some activists in this space has been to try to discredit us with unsubstantiated accusations, such as the ones you've just heard. So principally that we're transphobic bigots and we're analogous with racists and anti-Semites. Now, I'm Jewish. I know what anti-Semitism is, and I know that women defending our rights isn't it, and that we're funded by the American right. There's not a shred of evidence of us being funded or influenced by the American right. There isn't that evidence. So, but what happens with those accusations is they're used to discredit us, and when you can discredit us, that's then used to exclude us from the conversation.
Okay, let me just ask you broadly, sorry, Shereen Benjamin, let me just ask you broadly on this. Would you accept, in the very broadest sense, that we are on a journey as a society to become a more equal and more inclusive society? There's a lot of work still to be done, but we've made great strides in the issue of gay rights, we've made great strides in the issue of racial equality. Again, a lot of work still to be done, but would you accept that the issue of trans rights is the next logical step on this? And here is another group in society who just want to be able to live their lives the way they want to.
I think everybody should be able to live their lives the way they want to, so long as it doesn't impact on other people's rights. The Equality Act is set up very specifically to acknowledge that there can be conflicts of rights in some situations, and that where that happens, you don't hierarchise rights. You look at the evidence, you have a conversation about the evidence base, and you address concerns, and you arrive at solutions that will respect everybody's rights.
Okay,
and that's,
now,
I think, what we should be aiming for.
Let me get back to the central issue that we're trying to focus on tonight, and the issue of this debate and the discussion, this public discourse that we're trying to have in Scotland as we try to get a law passed through Parliament, or at least discussed and debated in Parliament. India Willoughby, do you think that anything you've heard tonight is wrong? Do you think that anything that we've heard tonight, because there's this issue of balancing up, getting two people on to discuss this from either side of a debate, and whether even that is acceptable to people on your side of the argument. Are you offended by anything you've heard tonight?
I am, yes, because it's all lies. And if you check out these groups that have sprung up over the last 3 years, as I was just going to say, 3 years ago in America, they said, stop attacking the gay people, start attacking trans, because that is the weak link in the chain. These people stand shoulder to shoulder with Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, the Heritage Foundation in America, where money is
that helpful? India Willoughby, is that helpful to this discourse? When we're trying to have a sober debate, I mean, I looked at your Twitter feed. I'm all for people promoting this programme, right? But before we came on air, you said on Twitter, I'm going on the 9 tonight to go head-to-head with TERFs, upset that Green MSP Lorna Slater has the temerity to compare them to racists for wanting trans women segregated, denied rights, and treated as second-class citizens.
Correct.
Is your vocabulary helpful to trying to get a reasonable and moderate debate on this?
I think it's a fair representation of what's happening. These people, there's a group called the WHRC, which is another one of the groups that this person is aligned with here, who have a declaration calling for the elimination, their word, the elimination of trans. So forgive me for being quite strong about it. If somebody's seeking my elimination, I'm going to be quite strong back.
Okay, Shereen, can you understand that? I mean, India has, it's a modern cliche now, lived experience of this. She has very firm and personal, first-hand experience of what this is like. Do you understand why somebody like her would hold these views?
I think I understand why they might hold them, but they are entirely mistaken. There's no evidence that we've received any money from the American right because we haven't. If she thinks
Posey Parker, Kellyanne Minshaw went over to the
Heritage Foundation.
Yeah, India, listen, we're just going to have to close this down in 1 second. Just can we let Shereen speak just now, because we're never going to be able to settle those issues out on here, those claims out on here. So final word to you, Shereen, quickly if you can.
So what we need is respectful, evidence-based discussion, an acknowledgement that women have a right to be heard, and that our concerns need to be taken seriously, and that our rights are not contingent on us accepting the belief system associated with gender identity politics.
Okay.
I think it is important to just stress that this isn't trans v women. They don't represent all women. They represent the gender critical movement.
Okay.
Very different from representing all women.
We're on the streets of Edinburgh last week, and we're on the streets in most Scottish cities most weekends. The atmosphere is palpably changing. A lot of women are becoming concerned.
3,000 people at the weekend complaining about trans conversion therapy. 3,000.
Okay,
You've
listen,
never matched those figures.
Thank you very much to both of you for being with us tonight. We can tell already this is a debate that is only in its infancy. We'll have plenty more time to debate it on this programme and on others. Thank you both for contributing this evening.
Thank you very much for having me.
Cheers.